and neatly portray Bill's 89 years of life into just a few paragraphs, it's clear that I cannot describe the many facets of his life. Each of us has an impression of who Billy was. He was a father, a young man about Port Arthur, businessman, friend, husband, relative, and retiree in Rockport. They're all slices of his life. I knew Bill as a father when I was young, and I really thought he was God on earth. Then I knew him in his waning years, a man whom Cindy and I took care of. In between, there is life that some knew and others did not, such as how life works. And in the end, when we gather to remember and honor the passing of Bill, we want to bring all these pieces together and tidy them up and make a lasting picture of the one we knew and loved and now miss. Bill was the third child of 4 in the family of Henry Joseph LeBlanc Sr. and Wilma Burnett LeBlanc, having 2 brothers and a sister who all have predeceased him. He was a boy of robust life and adventure, growing up in a time and place that allowed for a horse in the backyard that could be ridden up and down Proctor Street, a pet flying squirrel that roamed the house and went to school in his pocket, and also bit Pop-Pop on the neck. And hunting and fishing with his father and Uncle Mutt throughout the McFadden Marsh and the beach. He was much more attuned to the outdoor world and the world of friends and relations than the academic. If he had been born into a later generation, there may have been some greater consequence or label for this. As it was, he mostly aggravated teachers, sometimes to the point of the rod, but mostly, I suppose, to frustration. As I can well imagine young Billy spending much of his time in the classroom dreaming of being out on the water fishing, or in the marsh hunting, or riding his horse named Babe. In summary, he had a childhood that was as close as it comes to a storybook character such as Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. Bill was a likable and very social fellow. He was someone you wanted to be around. He was fun and attracted people to him. To his last year is actually his last months, others' attraction to him always impressed Cindy and me. No matter where we took Bill, any one of many doctors, nurses, restaurants, dentists, pharmacists, even the stern-faced Jordanian auto mechanic in the Woodlands, they all thought of him fondly and would ask about him if he was not with us. And it's uncanny. It really was. Indeed, Bill had the charm and ease with people that his father, Henry Sr., was known for. And he looked up to his father, as so many did, and strived to emulate him in personal and business affairs. And like his father, Bill achieved business success that allowed him to live a long and active retirement. However, Billy was also half Burnett, and his mother Wilma imparted her own Burnett influence to his character. He was named after his maternal grandfather, William Burnett, who I understand was known as Wild Bill Burnett. My grandfather Burnett, I'm told, was a man of sharp edge who liked his drink. And when they named young William, how did Henry and Wilma know? The purest moments of fatherhood I recall from my early years of youth are when Pop would tell bedtime stories to us. The stories were original, not out of a book. They were about his childhood adventures with friends on Proctor Street and around the marshes in the town. Friends like Russell Avant, Darrell Perkins, Charlie Birch, and a host of others. And these were stories worthy of recounting in print. There were stories of family, especially hunting with Pop-Pop and Mutt, and in the last 9 years of his life, when he came to live with us, he again blessed us with stories of family, stories of all 10 of the LeBlanc aunts and uncles centered in Beaumont, and the Burnett aunts, and so many other rich histories about people and places and growing up a LeBlanc in Port Arthur. And I want to acknowledge too, and have to do this, that Bill was favored by the girls. And I know he did not mind that one bit, and he certainly returned the favor. He was enthralled by Jerry Crockett when she was a young co-ed at UT, and somehow charmed both her and her parents into his first marriage. Now, while that marriage did not last, it produced children and grandchildren that he was proud of and that he returned to as a family in his later life. And after 2 subsequent marriages, Bill in his very later years was privileged to be a dear friend and be dear friends with Judy Staley of Rockport. And Judy's here, right here.
Yay!
And Judy's a treasure. Judy is a true treasure. And Judy had a special place in Bill's heart, and we will always be grateful for Judy for her kindness, love, and regard for Bill. And Judy, thank you for coming. Thank you.
What about me?
Well, it was very mutual, and it's wonderful that what you had with him. Bill enjoyed the role of grandfather. He enjoyed having his grandchildren visit him at Rockport. At Daddy Bill's, which was his name, his grandfather, Daddy Bill's, the activities included fishing, eating at the yacht club, having gold bricks for, for dessert, having gold bricks for dessert, and let me see. And while Daddy Bill was fast asleep, watching movies to really late hours at night. The next morning, Daddy Bill would fix the fisherman's breakfast, which was usually scrambled eggs, crisp bacon, and sticky buns from the local bakery. And if there was a fishing trip was planned and a grandchild was not up and at it, particularly Dylan, there was an occasion of a little water in the face to wake the sleepy fisherman. That's a true story. I was a bit amused, and this is a true story too. I was a bit amused and probably a little worried once when my son Dylan returned from Rockport and declared very seriously that he wanted to live the Rockport lifestyle. Somehow Dylan kind of overlooked the you got to work till you earn it aspect of retirement. In his time living in spring with us, Bill displayed admirable patience, perseverance, and gratitude in spite of his many nagging conditions and his Parkinson's disease. Whether it was the progressive loss of hearing, constant back pain, or loss of motor function, he never became too low or bitter. He was able to take the day that was given him and try to make something happen. Because he had the time, his Labrador Retriever, his last retriever of many, Blue, was undoubtedly the best trained of the many retrievers he owned.
Yeah.
And the irony is, Blue never went hunting. Sad irony, but he was very well trained retrieving dog. Bill and Blue would take their morning and evening walks up and down Indian Hill Road, Bill in his golf cart, and Blue would be walking and trotting alongside. And then we started noticing after a year or so that Blue would frequently ride in the cart too.
He would.
Especially in the heat of summer. Bill also had the judgment and the trust to make the hard decisions when he needed. Because when the time came, I did not have to ask him to give up his car keys. And when the time came for additional care, he recognized the need for moving to a nursing facility. The last few months of Bill's life were especially difficult for him. As all can appreciate. When you lose your speech, ability to handle a fork, and ability to move around, then there just isn't much to work with. Even so, we were told by the caregivers that Bill would on occasion try to bring a song to the other residents and try to make a kind word to all. Only a week or so before his passing, Bill's granddaughter Blythe, Phaedra's daughter, and her 2 children, which are great-grandchildren, Felix and Leon, paid a visit. And even at that late stage of Bill's life, there was a sparkle of delight in seeing the life and energy of his granddaughter and his 2 great-grandchildren. During the time with us, Bill became more dependent on assistance from others, as is expected with Parkinson's. For a time, when our daughter Yvette lived with us after graduating college, she was especially close to her grandfather and particularly attentive to him and his growing needs. And also, my wife Cindy has to be recognized for her effort and care for Bill in his last years. She was indeed the ideal daughter-in-law, and I know without a doubt that when Bill, my dad, needed something important or wanted to get something truly done, he was savvy enough, even to the end, to go straight to Cindy. Didn't bother with me. So on October 4th, Bill left us. He crossed over a little footbridge, spanning a little borrow ditch, and went over a levee. There's a little story behind that, but on the other side of that levee is a marsh of his dreams. It has a firm bottom that you can walk in, knee-deep water, full of mallards and pintails, and he's got a youthful spirit and body that can walk that marsh endlessly. There's no limit on the ducks in this marsh, but ironically, there is no need to hunt either. His burdens are lifted and his soul is at peace in a place essential to him. We know where Bill is now, and our hopes and prayers are that we will join and be together, and we miss him. So that is that.